it has come to sort of some knowledge that now I've seen that there are videos already popping up that are saying anyone that thinks that the history of the pyramids is anything but what the powers that be tell us, oh, they're terrible, they're a shill, they're this and that. But the simple truth is that is not correct at all. And also, any good researcher goes forward and looks for possibilities. In dealing with these issues, we won't always be exactly right. But if you're just going to stand in the mud and listen to what the powers that be say, well, you're going nowhere. Now, it's very interesting to me that Isaac Newton was a very interesting man. He's a very dual style character. You read all his works, it's very complicated indeed. And certainly we know he's involved. I mean, here, Your Majesty, so, at the top there of the page. But look what he says here anyway, interesting enough. He says that the chronologists have sometimes doubled the persons of men. Doubled the persons of men. And by such corruptions have exceedingly perplexed ancient history. The Greeks mixed goddess Io with the Egyptian goddess Isis. The Romans lost most of their chronicles to fires set by the Gauls. Persian timeline of rulers made no sense, and how could the great Egyptian city of Memphis have existed before Homer's day if Homer never mentioned it? As a result, Newton's own countrymen were adrift, uncertain of their own location in human history. The Europeans had no chronology before the times of the Persian Empire, and whatsoever chronology they now have of ancient times have been framed since by reasoning and conjecture. Do the homework. So there's a day we know is bogus as hell. And if you look in any history book, it's going to zoom in on that day. And there is 36,100 days in 100 years, just to put a bit of relevance to this 400,000 to 2 million. As said, such days were concocted. You begin to sense the scope of the new chronology. The imperio-statistical theory that much of human history is a fiction assembled to serve the powerful. Now, could you doubt this? Truly, do you think it's a subject that is worth having a good look at? You talk about all these other subjects. I tell you now, this is the big one. This is just as big as the moon hoax or the flat earth debate. This is huge. And it says, can you recall your middle school social studies lessons? How at some willowy point in your 11th or 12th year, you learned that recorded history begins with the appearance of writing. Well, I learnt this a lot earlier, actually. We used to do quite amazing things. I can remember back when we were 8 and 9 at school, to do with ancient civilizations and all that. And that's, I don't know why it just says the 11th and 12th. There were Mesopotamians with their cuneiform scripts, the Egyptian hieroglyphs and Demotic scrolls, and later the Greeks and Romans, whose societies form the backbone, for better or worse, of our own, if only because they kept such meticulous records, or so we think, you see, because we've all sort of found these connections to our past in museums, in books, in the ground. This is our inheritance, and it is ingrained into us early, just like dinosaurs. Now, there's a very famous line out of 1984 that says, those who control the past control the future. And it says here, Orwell's old cliche about control of the past may come as a shock to young first-time readers of 1984, but to chronologists, it's old hat. History chronology wrote the German historian Dietrich Hermann Heggewisch in 1854, is necessary to furnish a principle of order and to promote the orderly arrangements of social life. The murkiness of humanity's timeline is an old age problem. Absent a solution, society itself cannot function. Entire religious schisms turn on how church fathers set the dates to certain biblical events. This stuff is important. Now, Newton did up a chronology where he moved the English a little closer to antiquity. Events in ancient Greece, he argued, were about 300 years newer than conventional wisdom, and that's the 300 years no doubt taken out there. I've talked about in an earlier video, 6 to 900. And Egypt's empire was moved in time as much as 1800 years. Now that is what I said in that other video. If we can say that maybe 300 years is missing the so-called Dark Ages, how many other times did they adjust the timing? And maybe as much as 1800 years. That's quite a bit, isn't it? And it could be more than this. This is Isaac Newton, who, as you know, is some sort of corrupted individual. But even these people sometimes have a conscience and decide to write other writings that secretly disclose things. But it says critics were unimpressed. One argued that the author had gone senile in his old age. Another shrugged that Newton failed to come up with the correct judgments in everything except mathematics. The father of gravitational laws was downright subtle when compared to another chronologist who lived around the same time, the French scholar Jean Hardouin. So I'll be looking at him in another video, because this is a topic that really needs some looking at. Seriously, a lot of sacred cows to go down here. And I would say that when we look at this, we're going to see a lot more. This is something that's really going to expand how we look at this world. And it fits with what we've been doing recently. And so people can put this sort of study down and say, oh, they're joking, just like this guy did here to OK Newton, but as said, could be a dual character. It's hard to know who people are in history, what their real motives were, outside what's been written about them after they died. So, you know, and that can be corrupted. So you're really in a matrix here. But it's worthwhile looking at, worthwhile exploring, worthwhile people making some decent comments about, and let's leave all this slagging to football team people and all the shill channels. Okay, I think you should see that people who say they won't watch my videos, well, don't watch them, but you certainly won't be seeing some stuff that you probably won't find yourself that easy. Now, I've known this stuff since I was 17, 18, 19, 20. This goes back, it says, to 1980 to do with flamenco, but there's earlier than that. And there's other things I found on the net here when I first had computers, because I was already interested in that for a long time, how true history was. And I've noticed some of those sites have been removed because I couldn't find them again. There's a lot of mysterious connections between the British monarchy and the Old Testament. There's one for you. And there's many other levels in all of this. So it's definitely where the Jungle Surfer and New Cokes channels will be heading.